Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here today. So let's sit nice and tall and close the eyes. Just taking a breath in and a breath out. And allowing our awareness to move away from the mind and into the space of the heart. And with each breath, allow your awareness to become more and more centered within the space of the heart. As if you were a star centered in the sky of the universe. A sense of vast belonging. A sense of vast peace. A sense of wholeness and goodness. A sense of inspiration and joy. A sense of wonder. Allow your awareness to be centered in the vast space within the heart. And then repeat either silently or aloud. In this and every moment, I allow my heart to awaken. In this and every moment, I allow my heart to awaken. In this and every moment, I allow my heart to awaken. And placing the right hand on the heart, left hand over the right. And together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Om. And bowing the head toward the heart, acknowledging all that is. And then drawing the face back to center, releasing the hands. And welcome. Good morning. Good morning to everybody on Facebook. So today's talk is going to be a little bit of an introduction to the concept of heart awakening. And it just so happens that this coming weekend, we are going to be having a retreat on the heart awakening. And so this talk this morning is going to introduce a little bit about the information that we're going to include in that retreat, but also talk about the path of heart awakening through poetry, and particularly the path that Sufi poetry lays out for us. And I'm going to be reading poetry from this beautiful book, Love's Alchemy, Poems from the Sufi Tradition, translated by David and Sabrina Fiddler. And I'm not going to go in any particular order. I'm just going to open to a page. Some pages have already got folds in them because I use this book quite often. And discuss what the poetry has to offer us by way of a path to awakening our heart. In the Sufi tradition, the heart awakening is everything because that's where the unity is. The heart awakening to love, to compassion, to a sense of selflessness, to a sense of service, is the path. And everything in this life that we encounter is part of that path, because everything in this life that we encounter is yet another opportunity for our heart to open to the possibilities and for our heart to be surrendered into that vastness of love and the vastness of compassion. With any path, there's obstacles. With any path, there's challenges. With every path, there's frustration. With every path, there are seemingly brick or stone walls that we come up against. And within the Sufi poetry and within the poetry of all compassion-based traditions, there are answers to how to deal with those obstacles. and how to receive the lessons that they have to offer us. So without going on in this moment, because y'all know I can go on pretty easily, I'm going to, I opened up to the page that had this little postcard in it, which is very cute because it blends together several different concepts. The Buddha, the Hindu deity, and the modern-day Western yogini cartoon. And so, because that was there, we'll start with this poem by Kiri Baghdadi. It's called Burnt. Love burned up my very soul. I learned burning and melting, just like the moth. If my ashes someday should be scattered in hell, then hell, like me, would learn how to burn. So close the eyes for a moment and listen with your inner ears and within the heart. Love burned up my very soul. I learned burning and melting, just like the moth. If my ashes someday should be scattered in hell, then hell, like me, would learn how to burn. And flutter the eyes open. So again, without choosing these in a specific order, what this poem brings to us, what this lesson from the Sufi tradition teaches us about this path, is that the first thing we must be willing to do is be burned. We must be willing to burn up our impurities, to utilize the amazing power of love and compassion as a way of igniting the power of the heart, so that all of those previous behaviors, all of those previous experiences that we have had that have caused us to become stuck in a jail of guilt and hate and sadness and self-worth issues, that those are all burned away in the light of love, in the light of peace, in the light of unity. So the first thing that we need, or one of the first things that we could contemplate on this path, is how willing am I to burn up everything that I think I know about myself and surrender into a deeper experience of who I really am? And am I willing to allow love to be the light of the flame that does the burning? Or will I choose the fire of hell instead? So the fire of hell is a fearful fire, is it not? I don't know about you, but as a child, I was raised in the Catholic tradition, and hell was very scary. It was like there was this guy in a little red suit with tail, couple horns, pitchfork, and he was like, I got a fire for you. Come over here and we'll burn your sins. And this is the picture that as a child I had in my mind, was that there was this really demonic creature that was just kind of waiting for us, you know? And he was going to inflict such suffering on our souls and such suffering on our hearts because of the things that we did in this life. Then I kind of grew up and I grew out of that impression. And I came to realize in my own heart that my belief about hell is a little bit different than my childhood belief about hell. And I came to think that hell is not a place that you go, it is a path that you choose. Hell is not a place you go when you die, it's a path you choose while you're alive. And the fires that burn on that path are the fires of guilt and hate and anger and treachery and jealousy and envy and doubt. What Patabi Joyce called the poisons of the heart. And so, with that, what I felt was a more mature understanding, then I started to study into the traditions of yoga and Buddhism and many, many different traditions, Native American traditions and, Celtic traditions and pagan traditions and Sufi traditions. And the poetry of the Sufis just totally did my heart in, because then it was like, wow, so there's one path and there are two fires. And the one is the fire of suffering and pain and hate and blame and guilt. And the other is the fire of love. Which fire do I want to feed with my breath? Which fire do I want to feed with my behavior? Which fire do I want to feed with my service? Do I want to feed the fire of pain? Do I want to feed the fire of love? Simple question, really. So we come to a point, every single one of us, whether we want to call it our spiritual path or we want to call it something else, we all come to a point every single day, and potentially every single moment of every single day, where we're choosing between these two fires. We're choosing either the fire of continued hell or the fire of love. I'm giggling because I'm opening to some of the poems that I read in class this morning. So this one is Just Stop. Just Stop by Baba Afdal Kashani. Don't regret the past. Release your worries about the future. Don't think about yourself and stop trying not to. Now is the time to leave the shore. The ocean of unity is calling. Don't listen, don't see, don't say, don't think, don't even be. Just stop. So, this particular Sufi poem, to me, tells us how to become invested in the fire of our choice, if that fire is the fire of love. If the fire of our choice is the fire of hell, we don't really have to do very much except continue onward in the same way that we've been, moving all of these years through this life. But when the moments come that we feel powerful enough, strong enough, intended enough, awake enough to choose the power of love purposefully, then the choosing in and of itself is the stopping, if that makes sense. Just stop. If you choose that fire of love, then the past no longer has power. The regrets no longer have power. We begin to recognize that we can't make things happen. So we can stop striving. We can stop trying to cause things. We're not the doer in this and every other tradition. The one who does things is the consciousness, is whatever name you give to that. And we're simply the vehicles. So we can stop striving so hard. We can stop looking at ourselves in the mirror and pointing the finger and saying, failure, failure, failure. There's no such thing as failure. There's only experience. Similarly, there is no such thing as success. There's only experience. And when we choose the fire of love, we're choosing to have the experience in the light of love, in the radiance of love, and in the depth of compassion, so that the experience is no longer a battering or an abuse to us and to our ego. The experience becomes a lesson. It becomes an opportunity in this very moment to be closer to who we really are, to experience a greater reality within ourselves, to experience a deeper truth about ourselves. And the truth is that most of these stories that we tell ourselves are not true. I'm not good enough. Oh my gosh, last year I told a lie. I must be a liar. Or maybe we tell a little lie every so often. Therefore, I must just be a really horrible person. Or maybe, we didn't show up when a friend said they needed us. Therefore, we must not be a good friend. Or someone told us when we were younger that we didn't deserve to be treated well, and we bought it. We bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And now we feel that we don't deserve to be treated well. And so we accept the abrupt behavior of other people as if it belonged to us. These are all lies. If you really want to just get to the base of it, cut to the chase, those are lies. Those are lies that we have invested in. Those are lies that belong to the fire of hell. But if on this spiritual path we're looking purposefully and consciously at this path, which includes the fire of hell, and we're saying to ourselves, I don't know, that fire of hell is not so appealing anymore. I think that I'm going to transform it through the alchemical process into the fire of love. Then we have no choice but to put down those lies, to put them away, to relinquish them of their power over us, so that we can begin to experience life in every moment, in every way, through clearer eyes and clearer understanding. And as the Certitudes said, and it's like my favorite quote from the Certitudes, some of you have heard this many, many times, if the question you're asking is not about unity, then you're not asking the right question. When we opt, when we choose, when we dive into the fire of love, we have to begin to ask the question, what is unity? How far do we take that? What is included? Could anything even be discluded from the concept of unity? And I suggest the answer to that is no, that unity is unity. Therefore, nothing is discluded. So we don't throw away our past, but we understand that that's where it is, behind us. And instead, we make the choice, the active choice, to stop the madness and to move in this moment and every moment afterward according to the light of love, rather than the ignorance of the past. It doesn't really matter who you are either. It doesn't matter if you're an average everyday person, which we all are. It doesn't matter if you're a yoga teacher. It doesn't matter if you're a priest or a priestess. It doesn't matter if you think you're a healer or if you think you're ignorant. It doesn't matter. The reality is every single one of us is stuck in our past. Every single one of us is stuck in that fire of hell on some level, in some way, shape, or form. And every single one of us has the moment, in this moment, the opportunity to choose differently. To say, I'm going to leave the past behind me. Because I can't do anything now. It's done, let alone. Did you learn? If you have amends to make, then you make your amends to the best of your ability. And the best of your ability, here's the key. The best of your ability to amend for anything in your path that you think you need to amend for is to dive into the fire of love. And to live that life, that light, and that fire from this moment on, without exception. That is the only resolution to the past, is to stop and then to start again, right now. Walking through life and beating oneself up is not going to change anything. It's just going to make life worse. But in this moment, saying to ourselves, that's it. It's love. It's love. And that's what it is. That means that in every moment, you get to look out through eyes that see love. You get to hear through ears that listen for love. You get to smell through a nose that knows the odor of love. You get to taste through a tongue and a mouth that knows what love tastes like. It's not bitter. It's very sweet. It's nectar. You get to feel through the cells of your skin what love feels like. You get to make the choice in this moment to walk through this life emblazoned with the fire of love. Let's see if I can open to a poem we haven't read today already. All right. The next poem by Wala Dagestani. And I'm probably not pronouncing these names properly, and so I will apologize for that. This poem is called Something Else. In love's battlefield, there's another kind of combat. There's another kind of victory, another kind of escape. All those things you hear, people crying out, lamentations, weeping, moaning, and sighing, are only the sounds of raw desire. Love itself is something else. In love's battlefield. So again, another step on the path, another realization, another moment to look within and to recognize that there's so many aspects to this spirituality. The first thing to understand once we come upon this moment with awareness and we see that there are two fires is to recognize that the decision is a battle. It is the same battle that Arjuna experienced. It's the same battle that we all experience. It is the battle between the suffering and the pain and the story and the love and the compassion and the healing. It is the battle between the ego and the heart. It is the battle between me and me. And that is a battle that every single tradition in this world has spoken about over and over and over again. So he goes on to say, there's another kind of combat. There's another kind of victory, another kind of escape. So rather than thinking that alcohol is our escape, or drugs are our escape, or sex is our escape, or buying things, retail therapy is our escape, instead of thinking that, making up ourselves to look completely different than what we actually are is our escape, there's another kind of escape. There's an escape that actually makes sense. There's an escape that actually allows you to experience yourself. And that escape is choosing the fire of love. That is the escape from the ego. It's the escape from the ignorance. It's the escape from the lie. It's the escape from the dual experience of thinking me versus you. To dive into that fire of love is to accept the ultimate escape, which is not really an escape other than from suffering. It is the escape from needless suffering, from senseless suffering. It doesn't mean that you're going to stop suffering. You're in a biological body. You are, of course, going to suffer because this biological body builds up and breaks down every single moment of every day. But there's a difference between looking at the changes that are happening in this body and saying, damn this body, damn this life, damn it. Versus looking at these changes and saying, oh my God, this is amazing that I can change in every moment. And yes, my body is getting older. And yes, my back is not what it used to be. But that's okay. I'll tell you a little story. So many of you know that years ago, when I was diagnosed with Lyme's disease, at around that same time, I was also diagnosed with epilepsy. Yeah. Not grand mal, petit mal seizures. So I would kind of, and just kind of on a side note that's really interesting, I was also a very deep meditator and practicing tons and tons of yoga and like lots of different mind-based or heart-based practices, depends on how you want to look at it. But these experiences that I was having at that time were making me a bit concerned. So I went to a neurologist, and she hooked me up to the monitor, and she said, oh yeah, petit mal seizures for sure. First thing she said, we're going to have to take your license away from you for a while until we get the seizures under control. And then suddenly, every single stereotype about epilepsy came across my mindscape. And I went into contraction. And I was like, you will not take my driver's license. This is not happening to me. I am not epileptic. This is not. No. Denial. But of course, denial doesn't really mean anything. So she sat there and, she said she would not report my license as long as I promised to have my husband drive me wherever I had to go, or somebody else. And we negotiated some things, and it all worked out. And I went on a regimen of medication for a while. And the medication didn't really do anything. It actually made things worse. And so I went in for another medication, and I took that one for a while. It worked much better. But they didn't really stop. They lessened in their severity. If you were going to look at them as a distorting experience, they lessened in their severity. And something really interesting happened, though. I was in meditation, and I was having some thoughts about some words that my guru, Swami Aryatmanandaji, had said to me about just receiving visions, just receiving the things that you see in meditation, just receiving them and looking at them as a gift. And there was something that he had said to me that allowed me in that moment to have an epiphany that epilepsy, the word, is a diagnosis, but the experience that I was having was not a diagnosis. It was just another way to experience life. Period. And that I could experience life through a petit mal seizure. I could experience life.
That type of seizure, what?
So it doesn't really look like anything, except that you might think I was being rude. Because we could be having a conversation, and all of a sudden, my eyes might go a little blank, and I might kind of go there, off to the side. And we could have a whole conversation, and talking back and forth, and right after the conversation, I would have no idea what we talked about. No idea, because the mind went into what they considered to be a seizure. So, so forgetfulness, absent-mindedness, very short-term memory loss for sure, and no discomfort really, maybe a little bit of shakiness, some sense of instability, but not like a grand mal seizure where there's the throes in the body. Yeah. So I came to this point where I just said, it's just another way to experience life. I experience life there. I experience life when I'm brushing my teeth. I experience life when I was pregnant. Boy, was I experiencing life. I was experiencing life, when I stubbed my toe. I was experiencing life when I was driving my car. I was experiencing life when I was kissing my husband. I was experiencing life, and I am experiencing life in every moment. I experienced life when my bone broke. Boy, did I experience life. Oh my gosh, I experienced how intensely those little cells want to repair themselves and repair that bone. Most people who have had a broken bone will tell you that the break is nothing in comparison to the healing process. The healing process is what's painful, because that's life expressing itself, So in every moment we are experiencing life. In every moment. And in every moment there is an inevitable battlefield. In every moment there is an inevitable choice that can be made between the fire of hell and suffering and separation and hate and the fire of love and compassion and unity. He goes on to say, All those things you hear, the people crying out, the lamentation, the weeping, the moaning, the sighing, are only the sounds of raw desire. A person cries out, "Why me?" And we might hear complaining, but what is actually happening is the heart is saying, make a different choice. Choose the other fire. That's the heart's longing, is to dive into the fire of love, the fire of compassion, and put away the rest of it. Because you've been working there for a while now. We all have. And it doesn't mean that your work is over. It just means that, you know what's beautiful about children is they open their coloring book, right? And many children, sometimes the sun will be blue, sometimes the sun will be green, sometimes the sun will be black, and sometimes the sun will be yellow. The child doesn't hold themselves to only a yellow sun. Their creativity is far more vibrant than that. When did we lose that? When did we stop seeing the potential? There's not just one way. You don't just have to suffer needlessly. You can choose to suffer with purpose, and the purpose being to experience love. And I know that probably sounds crazy to some people, and I can only speak from my own experience that it has been so tremendously powerful in my own life experience that, like, I'm not suffering for no reason anymore. I'm just not going to do it. If I'm suffering, then I'm going to bathe that suffering in love. I'm going to bathe that suffering in compassion for myself, for other people. And I'm going to learn and embrace the learning. Period. Because at the end of it all, when my time comes, I do not want to say, I could have experienced more. I could have done it differently. Those are not going to be my last words. With all my heart and soul, the intention is that my final words will be, I love you, Jema. But in order for those to be my last words, then I need to know what love is. And I need to know how to surrender into love. And I need to know how to make love my priority. And how to clear my own self as best I can of these other tendencies of hate, of separation, of judgment. It's not perfect. It's practice. That's what this practice is. That's what this practice is. So the lamenting is, on the one level, the ego's dissatisfaction, but on the other level, it is the heart saying, make a different choice. You may still suffer, but at least choose what you bathe yourself in during that time. You don't have to choose hopelessness or doubt or, purposelessness. You can choose love, compassion, learning, and unity. That can be your choice, because that's where the truth of love resides. The truth of love does not reside in this conversation. The truth of love does not reside in thinking about how pretty love must be. The truth of love does not reside in looking at the rose and saying, oh my God, that rose is such a symbol of love. The truth of love resides in love itself. So in order to know it, we must be it, live it, express it, experience it, spread it around like peanut butter and jelly, and be very generous with it. Let it ooze out over the sides of the toast, So. There's nothing like, some people make a peanut butter or jelly sandwich, and it's like this thin little layer of peanut butter. And it's very, very clean. There's none on the edges. And the jelly is just as thin. To hell with that. That's the fire of suffering.
That's all bread.
It's like, put that peanut butter on there, put that jelly on there, so it sticks to the roof of your mouth, Totally. Right? Totally. Okay. Next poem. Somebody give me a page number.
52.
Okay. Well done. 52.
My favorite number.
That's wonderful. So 52 is a poem. His last name is Bila, and the poem is called 3 Rules. So I'm assuming now there must be 3 rules on this path at a minimum that we should follow. The divine path is nothing but courtesy. Courtesy itself is compassionate action. As long as you have a soul, it should be seeking. Should the entire ocean be poured in your mouth, drink a little, but be content. Wow, that's powerful. So the first rule, be courteous to everyone in all situations without exception. So that means that when you're on the dance floor dancing and some rude person comes over and wants to push into your dance, you just say, no, thank you, and continue. When a person takes your parking spot, you let them have it. It's not hurting you. There's probably a parking spot right next to that one anyway. If a person is taking out their grief on you, yelling at you, even insulting you, Thich Nhat Hanh said, let them insult you. What does it matter to you? Does it hurt you for someone to call you a name? Really? If it hurts you for someone else to call you a name, you have a little bit of work to do. Because what other people call you is none of your business. It has nothing to do with you. What other people say about you has nothing to do with you. It's their suffering that's coming to light, not yours. So don't invest in it. Just be courteous. Just be courteous and compassionate, because that is the courtesy. The courtesy is to see and recognize all people are suffering without exception. The second rule, as long as you have a soul, it should be seeking. I would say it is seeking. But sometimes the ego comes forward and says, I don't like where you're looking. Go look at the chocolate store, or the bakery, or the shoe store, or the bar, or the bedroom. The ego comes forward and says, when the soul is seeking something so sweet and so tender as love, and the expression and experience of that love, the unbalanced ego comes forward and says something like, there's power there. I can manipulate that power. All I have to do is prey on the weakness. Where is the weakness? And then cause the choice of the fire of hell and suffering rather than the fire of love. Love in that instance becomes very tainted and very distorted, because suddenly love is not pure and something that is just offered for no reason and for every reason with no expectation. Love becomes an expectation. I said, I love you. Don't you love me back? I said, I love you. What will you now give me? That's not love. That's possession. That's not love. And that's not healing. We come back to the teachings within yoga and almost every other tradition that I've ever studied that say, no other person can love you into healing. Only you can. When other people love you, when they offer their love to you, they're showing you a path of compassion. They're showing you that there is a courtesy that we are all capable of, a courtesy of compassionate love. And when that person loves you and then says to you, don't you love me back? then you know that their ego is just as imbalanced as yours. So don't put them on a pedestal because they're human. And every human has an imbalanced ego on some level. It doesn't really matter who they are. Even Thich Nhat Hanh was talking about being angry and how anger is a sign of an imbalanced ego. And he experiences anger, and most people would look at him as a modern-day saint. So we all experience the imbalanced ego. But we can minimize its impact on us by consistently choosing selfless love, selfless compassion, the kind that doesn't expect to be paid back or to collect interest on what we have invested. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the soul should be seeking, and we can work very hard to keep the ego as balanced as possible through nutrition and rest and exercise and scriptural study and sangha and prayer and service, to keep the ego balanced a little bit more so that the heart and the soul seeking can seek what it is truly seeking and not be sidetracked toward the fire of hell. Make sense? The third rule: should the entire ocean be poured into your mouth, drink a little and be content. The entire ocean. Be content, because the entire ocean is being poured into you in every single moment. The entire ocean of the universe. The entire ocean of truth. The entire ocean of consciousness is moving through in every moment. You're never without it. Instead of saying, I've been doing this for 3 years, 5 years, 20 years, why don't I have it down? What am I doing wrong? Instead of seeking some kind of perfection that we don't even know what that means, just experience the simple moment of the fullness of that consciousness and be happy with that. Be content with that. Do not look for perfect, because in the physical world it doesn't exist. Instead, just take joy in the moment, in the rainbow, in the sun, in the moon, in the stars, in the smile of a person, in the perfectness of a baby, the laughter of a child. The ability to come together like this and just speak with each other. To study these beautiful poems from the Sufi tradition and to contemplate what the path might look like. And I say might look like, because for each of us it's a little different. We all have different starting places and we all have different points of ending. It's very similar, but a little different. A little different. Just be content. Yes, Michelle.
I would say, if you drank it all today, what would you drink tomorrow?
Yes, he would.
He would have sat right there. I drink it all today. What do you drink tomorrow?
That's right. My beloved husband, Michelle just shared, if he were still sitting here with me, which obviously he is, he just said it. He would say, if you drink it all today, what will you have left for tomorrow? And that was his philosophy with everything. That was his wisdom with everything. If you do it all today, what will you have left to do tomorrow? Have what's in front of you now. And what's in front of you is amazing. What's in front of you is everything that's in front of you. And tomorrow that scene will change a little bit. And you'll embrace, experience whatever you will. Yeah. Thank you. Somebody else give me a number. 33. Very good. 33. The wind at dawn. by Rumi. Very nice. The wind at dawn is the soul's confidant. Do not find yourself asleep. This is the time to share your greatest need. Do not find yourself asleep. From before the beginning to beyond the last, the two eternities are present now. Do not find yourself asleep. The door of the two worlds is now open. Do not find yourself asleep. So beautiful. Rumi, the wind at dawn. In the yoga tradition, the time just before the sun rises is called the brahma muhurta. It is the time of Brahma. It is a very mystical, special, essential time because there's a very sweet energy that exists there. And it is considered to be the optimal time for meditation. And I know that people on Facebook are posting some thoughts and comments too. Please do continue to do so. I will answer those after the recording is over. Thank you. So this Brahma Muhurta, this time in the morning when your soul has a certain freedom, unencumbered by the happenings of the day, to commune directly with God, with little distraction. It's the start of a new day. We all like clean slates. You got one every morning from, say 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. or 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Depends on who you talk to. But that time before the sun rises. And in that time, there really is this special energy. And if you just listen with your inner ears, see with your third eye, taste with the subtlety of the sense of taste, with the rasa, the sweetness, the perfect balance is right there. And that is what your path leads you to. It leads you to recognizing that essence not only between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., but in every single breath and in every single second of the day. You actively start looking for it. And it's not like you're looking, like, where is it? You're recognizing it. It's the beauty of recognition. It's there it is. 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 In yoga, they say it might be a little bit easier to say neti neti, which means not this, not this. It's not this. It's not just this. It's not just this. It's not just this, just this, just this. It's this. It's all of it. And as we walk this spiritual path, and as we surrender ourselves into the fire of divine love, and as we come into a state of deep contentment, and we practice courtesy, and we recognize and embrace our soul's seeking, then we begin to see very clearly that it is everywhere and in everything. Everything. And then suddenly, I don't know, healing happens. And it's a soft healing. It's not like, woo, I'm suddenly healed and healthy and nothing's ever going wrong again. It's not like that. It's a healing that is so deep within that we just want to rest our eyes and sit with it for a little while and be with it and be content and know that that's the courtesy. The courtesy, yes, is opening a door for a stranger, for an elder. The courtesy is resting here in the heart of love, because the more that you're here, the less you're tripping other people up, the less you're tripping yourself up. to rest in the heart of love, to see that divinity is everywhere, in everything. And to know that 100% of all things will resolve without your involvement. Which is really helpful when you understand the fullness of that statement. It means you really don't need to do anything except for sit into the space of your heart, because all things will resolve themselves. You don't need to stick your nose in where it doesn't belong. You do not need to adjust other people's attitudes. You do not need to correct other people's choices in life. That's their job, not yours. Your job is to correct yours. And the only way to truly correct what we have committed is to learn how to rest in the heart. Do not find yourself asleep. Wake up. Allow the heart to awaken. And how do we know we're asleep? We start hating again. We start judging again. We start picking it apart again. We start saying, you're not as good as I am again. We start saying, I'm not as good as you are again. We start looking for the fault again. We start residing in the doubt again. We start choosing the fire of hell again. We start suffering needlessly again. That's how we know that we've fallen asleep again. And it's okay, because we all do, every single one of us. But instead of just saying, oh, I fell asleep again, I guess I must really suck. I suck. That's it. I quit. I'm a failure. I'll just stay in the fire of hell for a while. Stay there if you want to. It's fine. Or wake up and just call yourself on it compassionately with contentment and say, well, what did I learn during this visit? Okay, time to go to the other fire. Time to transport myself. Time to transform myself again through the alchemical process, and allow the heart to shine, and allow that radiance to be the primary radiance in life that we experience. Don't hate on the fire of hell. Don't hate on the suffering. Don't hate on it, because that's an ego game. The moment you hate something, the moment that you're like, I don't want you, it's there, and it's going to be there, because we're physically embodied. So it's there. The relationship you have to it does not have to be one of victimizer. It can be one of student-teacher. It can be one of great compassion. It can be one of purpose. It can be one of understanding. And it can be one that leads us to more deeply understand the suffering of all others as well. So that we know, that fire is calling me again. It must therefore be calling every other person too. And maybe I can find it in my heart to have a little more patience, a little more courtesy, a little more understanding. Maybe I can stay out of their way a little bit more. Stop judging. Stop calling people assholes on Facebook. It's just so harmful, You get on there and start talking about people, start calling them this, start calling them that, start making fun of the way that they look. It's ridiculous, because all we're doing when we engage in that type of behavior is hurting, is contributing, is feeding the fire of hell, the fire of suffering, for no good reason. But the ego says, oh, there's a reason. Because I'm better than you are. That's the reason. No, actually, you're not better than anybody. None of us are. We're all the same. Every single one of us. And the more we become accepting of that, the less harm we'll commit. And the less harm we commit, the less guilt we'll experience. The less guilt we experience, the less we'll think we deserve that hellish fire. And the more we might begin to invest in the heavenly, in the love, in the compassion. But first we have to stop hating on other people and stop hating on ourselves. We have to stop calling people names. I don't usually use language, but oh well. It's out there. Like the most recent thing is this ridiculousness over Ariel. Right? Everybody know who Ariel is? She's a mermaid, right? She's like the mermaid. And so Disney cast her as a white-skinned mermaid with red hair, I think. And now they're recasting her for the movie, and I guess that they're going to use a black girl, which is wonderful. Fantastic. I love that there's this argument going on out there that Ariel shouldn't be, I don't know, I guess some racist group came out and said she shouldn't be black, she should be white because she was white. It's like, well, actually, this individual who was just so brilliant went back and did a little bit of research. And this is how ridiculous the hate is, right? This is how ridiculous the hate is, that people are actually talking about what color a mermaid should be. She's not real. First of all, she's just not real. Come on, people, But the second thing is that the mermaid, I'll see if I get this right. You can look it up. It's on there somewhere on Facebook. The mermaid, the original conversation about a mermaid is that she is a demon-ish figure that is green who comes to the surface of the water to lure the men down to the bottom of the ocean so she can kill and eat them. Okay? I mean, come on. What kind of fantasy are we buying into? What kind of excuses are we lining up just so we can hate each other? How much more are we going to feed into that fire of hellish suffering before we burn our world down? It's a choice, man. It is a choice. When are we going to recognize that this entire life is the path of spirituality? From birth to death is the path, and beyond. For those of us who adhere to reincarnation, this is the path. And there's only two choices. You're either going to feed into the fire of hate and suffering, or you're going to feed into the fire of love. You cannot feed both at the same time. It's one or it's the other. So if we're going to get caught up in these ridiculous arguments and use mermaids as a reason to exclude people and hurt people and hate people, what are we doing? Yeah. More people need to wake up between the hours of 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. and meditate a little bit more, please. And then just let the fish be green. And let the costume be whatever color you want it to be. And have fun in the costume with each other. And celebrate our unity. That's all that matters. All right, one more page number. We have time for one more. 44. Very good. Good number, 44. This is by Razi. It's called Birds of His Sky. The men of his way breathe from another soul. The birds of his sky fly from another nest. Don't think you can see them using this sight. They are beyond the two worlds and in another. This poem is so beautiful because it tells us two things. First, it tells us that there is ordinary vision. And our ordinary vision is when we look out and we see things. I look out and I see you. And I see a tree, and I see a sun, and I see a sky, and I see a healing bowl and a rug and a chair. And then there's the other vision, where we look out and we see oneness. We look out and see this beautiful, collaborative concoction which is the universe. This consciousness. We look out and we see consciousness. We look out and we see oneness, unity. We look out and we see change. We look out and we see potential. We look out and we see suffering. And we see that the suffering has purpose. And you know what suffering's primary purpose is? So that we can find our compassionate heart to alleviate it. That's why. Suffering exists not only because this is a physical world and physical things build up and break down all the time, but spiritually speaking, suffering exists so that we can alleviate it. So that we can come into a more direct relationship with our own compassionate heart and approach each other from that place and support each other from that place. It doesn't mean I'm going to pick up anybody else's mess or that you have to. That's not the deal. But the deal is I will not create a mess for you. And I will not judge you for having one because I have one too. You know? Instead, we'll talk about solution. And maybe we won't talk at all. Maybe we'll just sit and pray together. Or sit in the silence together. Or just be together. Maybe in that stillness, in that silence, in that space, we just won't harm each other. So to me, this poem, which has many meanings, many things that we can take from there, it's only 4 short stanzas and it says so much, you know? The men of his way, and women, of her way, breathe from another soul. Their breath is not caught up in the mechanistic function of the physical world, thinking that they are a product of the world and that they are a victim of the world. Their breath comes from a place of knowing that oneness, of knowing that unity, of knowing that that consciousness permeates all things everywhere, so there's no need to despair. The birds of his sky fly from another nest. So in the yoga, there is the samsaric cycle of birth and death. And the process of being born is painful. The process of coming out of a nest for a little bird, you know, finding its way out of the egg, the battle that has to ensue, right? It's like we look at that process and we're like, man, that is just so hard and so painful, and what if they don't make it? But in this instance, the place that we're born from is the same place we go back to. It's just the continuation of consciousness and its flow. And so in that knowing, there may still be suffering, but the suffering is not purposeless. And it doesn't end with death. If that makes sense. Don't think you can see them using this sight, using your ordinary sight, the sight that picks out everything that's wrong and right. That's not the sight to see with. That's the sight to suffer with. They are beyond the two worlds and in another. The subtle realm, the realm of the divine, the realm of God, the realm of Goddess, the realm of the awakened heart. Any thoughts? Questions? So let's close the eyes. Sit nice and tall. With the eyes closed, allow your awareness to descend into the softness of the heart. Feel that you are choosing the fire of love. but that you're also holding space for the fire of suffering, the fire of hell, that you're holding a space for it, not pushing it away, not condemning it, just understanding it a little bit more. So maybe you don't have to rely on it so heavily. Maybe you could rely on the heart a little bit more, thereby lessening your own suffering and the suffering of all those around. Placing the right hand on the heart, left hand over the right. In this and every moment, I allow my heart to awaken. In this and every moment, I allow my heart to awaken. In this and every moment, I allow my heart to awaken. Together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Om. Namaste. Excuse me. Thank you all so much for being here today. So good to see each and every one of you. Thank you to everyone on Facebook for tuning in. May you all know peace today and every day. Thank you. Enjoy.